Hi everyone, Jordan Early here from Tribal Habits, and we're back for another of our 7 questions in 7 minutes sessions. I'm joined once again by our CEO, David King. How are you, Dave?
I'm excellent, Jordan. How are you doing today, man?
Yeah, really well.
That's
Dave,
stuff.
today I want to talk about content for your online learning platform. So I think it's all very well to have a platform, but training is and has always been about outcomes, and it's the content that delivers those outcomes, not the training platform. One of the things we've seen is there are options for organisations to access these content libraries that have tens of thousands of online training courses in there. So that's what I want to focus our discussion on today. I want to talk through these platforms and where they fit in and whether having thousands of courses is really a good thing.
Cool, okay.
Cool. So I think the first question is probably the elephant in the room, which is how important is it that we have access to thousands of online learning courses?
Yeah, it's a lot to go from having no content in your learning platform to having 10,000 or 100,000 courses. And to answer your question, I don't think it's that important. I don't really think training's ever been about quantity. Now, some people may say, oh, but we have professional development hours that our staff need to meet, and they need to get 20 or 30 hours every 12 months or something.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there's a quantity element in there, but 20 or 30 hours is not tens of thousands of courses. It's a couple of really good courses, and then it's some good technical reading, and then it's catching up with your industry body. So you certainly don't need tens of thousands of courses even to meet professional development requirements. If you look at the KPIs that are typically put in place in an organization for training, they're not about numbers of hours of training completed or number of courses completed. They're always about outcomes. You justify your training budget by pointing at the difference you're making to your organization, the outcomes you're driving, the change you're creating. You never justify your training budget by pointing out that people have done 10,000 hours of training, because the stakeholders turn around and kind of say, so what?
So I think this next question leads into that, which is, you see it from a marketing point of view. We've got 10,000 courses. My question is, what's actually in these course libraries? Like, what are these 10,000 courses?
Yeah, I kind of struggle to think of what could I have 10,000 topics on. Yeah. And I've seen course libraries which say they have 100,000 topics. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. It does sound great. And I know internally you'd be really tempted as a HR manager to say, oh, we've got 100,000 courses. But actually, when you do due diligence, it's not 100,000 courses. The first thing is, it's a lot of repeats. You and I have both done it. We've been to some of these libraries, and you type in a topic like sales objections, and you get back 50 training courses from 50 different providers all on the same thing. That's not really 50 courses. That's one course with 50 little variations of it. And so it's a bit of an illusion. It's not as big as you think it is. And in fact, I guess we're going to talk about, that actually creates a problem, having these repeats and these small variations in there. The other thing is, it's often not training. It's often just scraped content like TED Talks or PDF documents. I've never seen someone have 10,000 handcrafted e-learning modules in a library.
Yeah, so let's go into that a bit more. I think we're scraping the surface here, but what is the experience like for the learner in these platforms? There's so much information there. It's a little bit generic in nature, but let's talk that through a little bit.
Yeah, look, if it's one of these big, just general aggregated course providers who literally do just go to every provider in the world and get their courses chucked in and then scrape the internet for stuff, the experience isn't great for learners. The first thing is, it's really passive learning. Most of it's quite low quality online learning, if it is online learning at all. Otherwise, you're just watching or reading. It's nothing more than that. Really, all that you're getting is a result very similar to just running a Google search yourself. And then just looking at what's on websites, except it's now being piped through your learning management system. But that's not education. That's not training. That's not learning. That's just information. It's passive and it's generic. It's certainly not an easy learning experience for learners, and it requires really motivated learners to get into that. Unfortunately, they're a little harder to find in busy modern organizations.
Absolutely. And how do you think this works around the engagement between a learner and its organization? If the course is generic and it's like, here's some sales training.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily work in our organization, but apparently it works. How do you think that sits with them building an engagement and a relationship within the organisation?
Yeah, it's a really fine-tuned one. I know, again, to an HR manager, it probably sounds good to send out that email to your staff to say, we've now got access to 100,000 training topics, and your staff, they're like, oh, that's fantastic. I've got opportunity. But opportunity needs to be balanced against the ability to tap into that. So when you're working with these really massive course aggregators, every course is from a different provider, has a different set of navigation, has different branding, has a different interface, has different experiences, has different level of details, is written in a different way. There's no connection or consistency between the modules. I get that it's about some sort of efficiencies maybe, which we could talk about, but I don't feel it's very efficient for the learner. And I feel it's a bit of a missed opportunity because none of it's branded to the organization. It's all branded to the learning companies that are providing it. And you're missing the opportunity to really promote your organization's brand through this process and feeling through this process. Instead of just dumping onto your employees this bucket of content.
And so that dumping of content, do you feel a little bit like that's convenience or maybe even laziness from the organization just to say, okay, here's a lot of courses, we're done, that's us? Like,
laziness is harsh, but I know where you're coming from. It's certainly convenient for large organizations that just need to get some content out and they can just kind of turn on this pipe. But it's really not convenient for anyone else, because if I'm the end user and like now I've just got to go and search for stuff, find stuff, or I'm a manager and needs to go find training for my staff and I type in what I'm looking for, I get 50 results and I'm working my way through each of them to figure out which one of these courses is the one I actually want to do. You know, they have the phrase busy work. It's like busy learning. It's just wasted time. There's no curation here. There's no giving me the good stuff, just cutting to the chase. And time's really valuable to people. And here I feel like time's wasted on non-important parts of learning, on that finding stuff and sorting it out, where that time could be spent on the actual learning process. Yep. So yeah, convenient for some people, but super inconvenient for a lot.
So what's the other side of the coin, I guess? If convenience is one thing, or we just have lots and lots of information, it's a little generic. What's the alternative? What could people be looking at?
Well, I think you need to balance this with relevance. So opportunity is great. We want the opportunity for you to learn, but what you're learning needs to be relevant. It needs to be applicable to you. And look, I get it. 20 years ago, these big aggregated libraries would have been really useful because it was actually harder to find content on the internet and there wasn't a lot of specialized e-learning available. But both of those problems are solved. We don't lack for content. We don't lack for opportunity. We don't lack for data. What we lack is time, and we lack the ability to make sense of it all. And, you know, there is a place for these libraries, really specialized learning experience platforms, something like Code Academy. They do have 1,000 courses, but each one is genuinely unique and handcrafted, and information you probably can't get from a standard Google search. That's fantastic.
Yep.
But just a general aggregator that just brings in 100,000 courses from 75 random providers on 100,000 different random bits of information, you might as well just do a Google search. You're getting the same result.
Yeah.
But the Google algorithms on the search are probably better than the ones in the learning platform.
Exactly. So how does an organization find that balance between convenience and relevance? It sounds like curation is something that needs to be done here.
Yeah. And look, I think I don't want to bash these really big libraries too much, but I think the bigger they get, the less their value. I think for an organization, you've got two things to think about. You've got your internal knowledge in your organization. And they say in sales, it's always a bad idea to fly over good business to get to business further away when you've got business at your doorstep. And I feel the same way with training. You don't need to go and get external training if you've got the knowledge within your organization. Why step over all that good, relevant, contextualized internal knowledge to use some generic bit of external stuff? So what you need something that's going to help you tap into the knowledge you've got inside your organization, which is really relevant. It's free. It's right there. It's proven to work. And for the effort to create it, it's probably really not that much more than the effort to sort through hundreds of thousands of courses.
Yep.
If you don't have the expertise in your organization, then go out and get it in a nice targeted way from well-curated, specialized libraries, which are really focused on their knowledge and can bring something to the table. And then blend those two things together. So some of your training comes from internal knowledge and expertise, and you fill in the blanks externally with what you need. that gives you, and that can all be seamless and in your branding and highly engaging and super relevant and very efficient.
Yeah.
It just probably requires a slight bit more of effort than just turning on the tap to 100,000 training items.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is all we've got time for today, guys. We're racing the clock a little bit here. But I do want to say that if you are interested in creating customized content that's hyper relevant to your organizations, I'd encourage you to check out Tribal Habits, because that's really at the core of what our business does. So, Dave, thank you very much. Really insightful thoughts today. And we'll see you all again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.